Hi, this is Kim Hallen of Unbridled in Charleston, South Carolina. And today is the first in a series of videos that I'm going to be publishing this year about what we can learn from horses, about how humans, as well as horses, heal from trauma and how we go through the process of personal transformation. So in order to do that, I'm going to be telling the story of a very special horse named Tempo. And she's been with me since she was born. She's 14 years old now. And I'm going to show you some pictures at the beginning of this video that are happy, but I'm going to say that it hasn't always been that way with us. And one of the things I want to point out is that Tempo is a horse who's never been abused or neglected, but yet she developed very serious aggression toward humans. And for her, that aggression was born out of an experience where she had a very severe injury and a very difficult rehabilitation. And it was a very stressful time in her life when she was young. And we all respond to stress differently. And for her, aggression became her coping mechanism. Really, it was in response to not having control over what was happening to her during the treatment and rehabilitation process. But the important thing to know is that no matter what the cause of aggression or stress-related behaviors are in either horses or humans, the healing process is similar. And one of the main things that I want to show you through this series of videos is that although the work of personal transformation is work that is very internal, we can't really do it in isolation, especially if the trauma that we're trying to heal is an interpersonal trauma and related to interactions we've had with human beings of whatever kind in our lives. So with that introduction, I'm going to be starting. Today's video is going to focus on sort of the baseline behaviors that Tempo had. It's going to show you some of her aggressive behaviors. A lot of her really aggressive behaviors were not caught on video, but you'll see enough in these clips, both about her aggressive tendencies and also some of the other stress-related behaviors that she exhibited when people were around. So today's going to be about establishing the baseline, and I'm going to be explaining what's happening in the video clips and what I'm seeing. And then in subsequent videos, I'm going to be talking about the process I went through to help Tempo heal from this trauma and to move past the aggression that she felt and that she exhibited in her life, especially toward people. So it's going to be a really interesting journey, and I'm excited you're joining us, and welcome to video 1. First things first, let me introduce you to Tempo. This photo was taken back in 2007 when Tempo was just a baby, and as you can see, our relationship was pretty happy at that time. And this second picture was taken just last year. Again, we look pretty happy, and we are. But the point I want to make is that for a lot of the time in between these two photos, things weren't so rosy for us. Take this video clip, for example. It starts out looking not too bad, and then you see Tempo kind of come into my space. I asked her to move out, and then, oh goodness, things got a little hairy, as you can see. As I play this video clip again in slow motion, I want to say that the good news is that most of the time, Tempo's aggressive behavior was more about threats than it was about actually hurting us. And that's often the case with humans who've been injured too. Now, I will say though, with Tempo, if we didn't heed her threats and take them seriously, it quickly escalated to actual physical contact. This next video clip shows some of her more subtle stress behaviors, and I wanted to draw your attention to these. So as I'm walking around Tempo, coming around behind her to this side, you'll see Tempo start lipping that rope. That is what I call displaced behavior, and that is a sign that she is stressed out by what's happening. And when I put my hand on her, she starts lipping that rope. Now here I go around her, and I put my hands on her to ask her to move her face, and you can see how upset that makes her. So touch is a real trigger for Tempo at this stage. Now she still follows me, which I'll talk about later, but notice whenever I put my hand on her that her tail starts swishing. So horses can be like cats in that regard, and the tail indicates frustration. And you can see when I didn't take my hand away in response to her tail swishing, she pushed into my space and got upset. Here we have her doing displaced behavior on that PVC pipe or PCV pipe. Again, she's not playing with that. That is anxiety because she isn't sure what I'm going to do standing so close to her. I start to walk away. She starts to want to come with me, but look at that tail. She's really conflicted. There's a social horse in there, but she can't really handle the interactions right now. So I go back to her, and this time she comes with me. But she gets really busy here, eating a little bit of hay that's on the ground, and that's an attempt to calm herself and to handle what's happening. Grazing and eating is a calming behavior for horses, but you can still see every time I touch her, the tail starts swishing. So the fact that she's not really interacting with me and she's not calm, some people might think she looks calm, but the tail swishing and the kind of obsessive nibbling on the hay, rather than and not wanting to look at me or face me, these are all signs that she's not real happy and she's pretty stressed out. You can see again, every time I put my hand on, the tail starts swishing. Yep, there it goes. And again, she's still trying to calm herself with eating. So here I'm beginning to start to work with this dynamic. So her tail is swishing when my hand is on. I'm trying to wait till it calms and quiets, and then I take my hand away. So I'm trying to give her what she wants, which is my hand to come off of her when she relaxes a little. This is the work that we're going to get into more in the future videos, but I started working on it here, and you can see her tail's getting quieter as we go. Now, I do something here in a minute that kind of messes it up. So the tail gets a little bit loud again, and I keep my hand on longer than I should have, and the agreement was broken, and that really unhinged her. And then she kind of came at me, and I got a little worried, so I used the rope to defend my space and keep myself safe. So this next series of video clips really shows the inner conflict that Tempo was struggling with at this period. You see her approaching, but her ears are back, her tail is swishing. She's really conflicted. She's a very social horse, so she wants to interact, but she has a lot of trauma from, like I said, the long rehabilitation from the injury that she had. And it really wasn't anything bad that happened to her, but okay, so here she sort of lost it, and this is how her behavior would present when she went over threshold emotionally, and she just like would kind of lose it and push into my space and get aggressive, but not really attacking me. And I learned that I could trust she wasn't actually going to attack me unless I punished her for this behavior. If it turned into a fight between us, I was going to lose that fight. So that at this point, I still really didn't know exactly how to work with her and manage this behavior, but I had learned some things, and I was doing my best to keep us both safe. So what happened to her, when she had her injury as a yearling, it was a coffin bone cyst that was not able to be treated surgically. So she had to be confined for about 8 months. As a very young horse, that's difficult enough. Then we had to go in and give her injections and medications and treatments, all kinds of things. She didn't understand what was happening. And because she was confined, she had no flight options. Horses are flight animals. And so what came out was fight. That was the only response that she knew. It was her coping mechanism. And so that got really ingrained during that period of time. And even after she healed and we were able to let her back out with the other horses, she was never aggressive to other horses. It was all about her relationship with people. Something important I want to point out here is that once I stepped over that little rope, even though that's not really a very big barrier, mentally it was a divider between she and I, and it was a barrier emotionally. And this was key to the strategy I used later on. So a bit more background video here and baseline video. As you can imagine, because Tempo's trauma was related to things being done to her body, and she felt like she didn't have any control over what was happening, then situations like trimming, where she's haltered and tied, and in a sense, she feels like she's being forced to do this and that she doesn't have control over what we're doing to her body. This was a big trigger for her. And you're going to see as this clip goes on how her behavior escalates a little bit. But one of the key things I want to tell you is that because Tempo was confined and her flight reflex was basically useless in that situation, fight became her go-to. And here you see, especially giving up her back legs. And so she kicked at the trimmer, and then watch what she does. She takes out her aggression on me because he isn't leaving. So it was really a challenging situation. She wouldn't let anyone handle her back feet. The injury that she'd had been in her right hind foot, actually. But she became hypersensitive about anything to do with her back feet. And not only would she kick with her back feet, but then whoever was trying to hold her, which was typically me because nobody else would do it, she often would take her frustration out by biting and striking with her front end. So it was really, really a challenging situation. And you can see here, she's not afraid in the typical sense that a horse is afraid. She's very confident, and was born and raised very comfortable with people. The pawing is definitely a sign of anxiety and frustration. And so, she's pretty triggered at this point, and it kind of gets uglier from here. But, once the aggression became her go-to, it never even occurred to her to try to leave. You'll see she never tries to pull back or escape or run off or bolt, the kinds of things that typically a scared horse would do. She doesn't even know that leaving is an option. That was taken off the table for so long for her that all she can think about is fighting, and she just feels like a victim in this situation and as if she has no choice. And a lot of people who've been through traumatic situations can probably relate to that. And we're trying here to be very patient with her, but as you can see, we really weren't making much progress. So again, in the videos to come, I'm going to show you and talk through the strategy that I used, which was a long process, but it was really quite fascinating and very counter to most horse training methods, and certainly will give you ideas if you have children who are dealing with this kind of frustration and anger from not feeling in control of their lives, that there might be another way to address this other than punishment, which probably doesn't work for children or even adults in this kind of a situation any more than it worked for Tempo in this kind of a situation. So I'll leave you with this. As you can see, we weren't making much progress that day with getting her hind feet trimmed, and it was really a struggle. Thanks so much for tuning in for this video, and stay tuned for the second video in this series that will be coming hopefully within the next month or so, as I have time to sift through old video footage and can pick out the clips that are best for showing you how Tempo and I began our healing and transformational journey together.